Now let's move to the next presentation, which is going to be total cost ownership. And for this, Josh will be walking us through. Oh, somebody unmuted. Oh, it's Josh.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Josh Kuster Stefan here. I'm a software developer for Medic based out of the United States. And today, just going to bring you an update here on the work we've been doing around the total cost of ownership. Anybody that was here back in August, I think, at the CHT Roundup may remember Ashley Jones presented some of our initial work here regarding just our best estimates at the average hosting costs for the CHT, coming in at around 10 cents per user per month. And anybody that wants to kind of go check out that number, where those numbers come from, or any more details there, I'll just point you to our documentation site. In the hosting section, there's a pretty good review and breakdown of how we came to that number and what that might look like for your deployment or your system. Today, what I want to talk about is once we kind of grabbed our baseline number there, we started drilling into, okay, what's the driving contributing factors behind that cost, and trying to break that out percentage wise. Where are we spending the most money hosting the CHT? And so looking at real world deployments, particularly AWS deployments, which is where we've kind of got the most experience here at Medic, we were able to pretty clearly see disk space, although being cheap supposedly was a main cost when it comes to hosting large CHT instances. Probably no huge surprise there. What is interesting, also not surprising, but important to note when it comes to the disk usage of the CHT is we're running with Couch database, and the Couch database kind of stores your information, but also it indexes your information. And when I say index, in the database world, the indexes are kind of like extra computations that get stored on top of just the basic data that make it faster to access that data. So you've got your report document, and that gets stored to the database. But in order to be able to easily retrieve that document, in order to be able to kind of make the basic functions of the app work efficiently, Couch has to store a bunch of other index data on top of just that basic text of the document, so that it's able to quickly look it up depending on the user's current context and what they are trying to see at the time that they're actually using the app. So indexes make up certainly probably the majority of the disk space easily that's being used by Couch, not just kind of your basic text document storage there. And in particular, we're not surprised to find that the indexes around free text searching really took up a large percentage of the total disk being used. And so these are the indexes. If you're on the people tab or you're on the reports tab and you're trying to find a contact or you're trying to find a report and you're typing into the search box at the top, it's filtering those using these free text search indexes. Takes a lot of space in Couch to try to do free text searching like this, and there's like it's largely because the way Couch indexes work, they're not particularly well optimized for this free text search instance. Couch indexes are great for a ton of use cases that we need it for, but free text searching in particular kind of had to be implemented in such a way that we knew it was going to use a lot of disk space. It does use a lot of disk space. It works, but it's not ideal. Because of all of this, we started looking at, okay, well, what can we do to make the free text search indexes take less disk space? And here we are. Couch actually has support for a query server, and the Couch team calls this Couch Nouveau. That's their name for the query server, and this thing is built using the Apache Lucene library. And if you're not familiar with Apache Lucene, it's just kind of a core text search library. It's the basic um, guts of stuff like Elasticsearch and Apache Solr. So this is kind of like a best in class searching library, really well optimized for text searching, kind of exactly what we need it for these free text searches. And so as we were looking at this and trying to figure out what's the best way to reduce, this size of these free text indexes while still being able to retain this functionality, this kind of became the obvious direction to move here. Let's pull in Couch Nouveau and start, build our free text searching off of that. And so this is currently, we're in the process of doing this implementation right now. The idea is the basic functionality of the app is going to look exactly the same before and after this, right? We're essentially just replacing the existing Couch indexes that we have with queries through the Nouveau service back, into the same Couch data that we've always had living out there. So nothing should look different from the user's perspective. It's going to be, perhaps the search will just be faster. On the hosting side of things, we're seeing, somewhere in the range of an 85% reduction in the size of that free text index on the disk. Like I said before, the Couch indexing for a free text search, full document free text search, was just very much not optimizable. Whereas Lucene is purpose built for doing this, and so it's able to really condense the amount of data that it needs to store while still being able to just serve up queries lightning fast there. One of the important things I do want to point out, though, is the way that this works, though, is this is not like a new database. This is not a new place that we're storing data or anything like that. It's kind of a query server that is going to live on top of Couch or like with Couch as part of your CHT deployment. All of your data is still going to exist. All of the documents, all of the reports, all of your contacts are going to be stored in Couch the same way they always were. None of that is moving, but the Lucene index can kind of look at that Couch data and index it up, and then be able to serve up the results to queries very, very fast, very, very efficiently. It's a pretty dramatic improvement in terms of the size of data on the server disk. So we're super stoked about this. As we go through rolling this out, the upgrade process that we anticipate is going to be seamless. As for previous 4.x upgrades, it should be as simple as following the normal upgrade path of pushing the upgrade button. The 4.x CHT architecture was designed to be able to add additional Docker containers to the deployment as needed, and that is how we expect this to work. That's how we're implementing it currently. Is there's going to be a new container running beside of Couch that's got the Lucene service in it, and that's going to enable this kind of Couch Nouveau feature set here. But once again, there's not going to be any change to the upgrade process. There shouldn't be any manual steps, and there shouldn't be any kind of impact in terms of the usability of the system or something that a user would expect to see. Other, your server admins are going to notice maybe a lot of less data being stored on the disk, and that's about it. The maybe final question I will just answer here is well, if this is also great, how come we didn't do this sooner? And the answer to that is this is a newer feature of Couch. Actually, this is something the Couch community has been working on for a while, and they're just starting to kind of roll it out broadly here. So we saw this opportunity to really solve some problems here in the CHT ecosystem with it, and have kind of jumped on this. We've been working pretty closely with Couch just to ensure we've got good stability here on this functionality, and that kind of future upgrades are going to go smoothly. But all in all, we're super excited about what this is going to be able to unlock for us, and just in general, it's going to result in a very, very nice reduction in the amount of data on the disk while still maintaining the same functionality everybody expects. Maybe I'll pause there for a second if anybody has questions on this. Like I said before, hoping to ship this early 2025 on a CHT release. But yeah, anybody have questions or comments about free text searching, TCO, any of that?
I have a question about hosting. So you mentioned that the CHT architecture has built-in support for adding additional containers. That's true for Docker Compose, but is a little bit less true for Kubernetes, which requires updated Helm charts for this deployment. So my question is, how do we see Kubernetes deployments, especially the Kubernetes deployments that use custom Helm charts, which exist, handle this upgrade? What will happen if they do the upgrade from the button, but they do not correlate the change in Helm charts at the same time? Or how does that work? Like, do they create the Helm chart for the new container before the upgrade, after the upgrade? Will the system work even though the additional container for Lucene doesn't exist? How will that work?
Yeah, all great questions, Tiana. Thank you for that. And I will say the maybe just to back up from Kubernetes for 1 second too, there's going to be quite a bit of documentation coming with this as we move forwards. The Happy Path kind of Docker Compose upgrade, we're pretty confident on the steps we've got there. If somebody's using a custom Docker Compose, like I think, for example, if you've got clustered Couch, we're going to have some documentation published on what that needs to look like for that setup. There may be kind of some manual steps there, as you might expect if you're kind of running a really custom configuration. For the Kubernetes specifically, I don't have the details in front of me on exactly how that's all going to look, but that is definitely something. Diana, we will probably be working with you to hash out some details and pull in Harit. And the ultimate commitment, though, that I can say right now is it's going to be well documented. It's going to be in the release notes. Anything that there shouldn't be anything surprising that happens through the course of this. So we're going to do our best to minimize any kind of manual upgrade steps on the Kubernetes side as well, as much as is feasible there.
Thank you, Josh.
And if there's no other questions, I have blown through almost all of my time here, so I apologize, Niraj, but maybe I will speed things up on CHT core releases. So enough about what is to come. Let's talk about a few things that are good now. First of all, we just got a few great improvements coming through in these latest CHT core releases. These are live now. The first one I'll mention is just around report validations. We've enhanced some of the functionality around this. This is useful for like SMS workflows, especially where you've got reports being submitted via SMS to the server or contacts, that kind of stuff. The validations run on the back end. We've made some changes in there to allow combining different validation functions into the same rule using logical operators and that kind of thing. Once again, it's all kind of out on the documentation and the release notes, so check that out if you want to kind of supercharge your report validations. Also recently introduced this sidebar here. You probably have seen presentations on this in past roundups. One of the things in the latest couple of releases, we've done some quality of life improvements around this. No major UX changes, just kind of making sure everything works exactly like you'd expect. Super smooth, super flawless. Very, very much just a clean experience for the user. Last but not least, Jenny previewed this last roundup call here, and I want to just sneak in a quick demo if I can. Niraj, stop me if we have zero time, but this is a pretty sweet set of changes here that I think really supercharges the ability to kind of get a ton of value from training cards. So real quickly, most people here hopefully are familiar with the concept of training cards in the CHT. You can kind of define these, configure these cards on your instance, and then a user is going to be prompted to go through some training automatically here when they log in. So you can see here, I've got my user, I've logged in. Now I see I've got this training card popping up here telling me about the new floating action button. This is just kind of one of the sample training things. I can sit here and go through this training right now and do it, but maybe I don't have time. I can cancel out. I'm warned about it, but I can leave. Now, a user is going to be reprompted later automatically to kind of go complete that training. But what's new now in the latest CHT release is we've added this training materials page here. So a user on their own time at any point when they want to can go back to their training materials and see the various trainings that they've had assigned to them. So in this case, you can see I've got two different trainings here. I can click on them. I can go in here. I can complete this training, or I can like exit back out and not do the training. If I complete the training, one of the things that you'll be able to see is, boom, I can see which trainings I have done and then which trainings I still have left to do. So really useful for being able to kind of track across multiple training sessions, multiple different things that I as a user am trying to learn here. Lastly, let's say I do the training, great, move on, but now I kind of want to remember what it was, you know, from the last page of that training. You can come back in here to this training materials page again. You can open up that same training cards and go back through it and basically relearn or review all of the training that you've taken before. So once again, just great iterative improvements here on the training cards, and I think it's really going to supercharge the things that deployments can do with their training, and it's going to be really useful for users in the field who just need to, you know, figure out what it was that they learned 3 months ago and go back and review that, or you know, even just juggling multiple different trainings that are assigned to them at the same time. And with that, I think I will hand it back to Niraj. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Josh. Does anyone have any questions to Josh before we move to the next section? You can unmute yourself and ask question. So Josh, if somebody does the training, let's say CSW does the training, I see there's going to be green tick mark. Does this can also notify the supervisors, or that's not available right now?
So all of the existing functionality around training to allow people to kind of see what trainings have been done by who still applies here. and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but finishing a training submits a report saying that you finished the training, and I assume similar supervisor workflows can be implemented as with other types of reports for alerting supervisors directly in the app versus kind of like a dashboard setup or something else. But yeah, I would think that all remains the same here. This is mostly useful on the end user perspective, though. For the new training materials page, what's changed here is just presenting data that already existed to the user in a way that's super useful to them.
Great, thank you. Okay, if anyone has any question to Josh, maybe they can put it on the chat and we can revisit it again. In interest of time, maybe we can move to the next section, which is going to be CHT Community Squad updates, which Anthony will be covering.
Right. Thanks, Niraj. Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Haemba. I'm a community manager at Medic based in Nairobi, Kenya. So I'll be sharing an update on CHT community squads. So currently the community is implementing various initiatives, and these initiatives aim to make the CHT product development process to be community-led and also owned by the community. So the aim of this initiative is also to increase the contribution from the community and make sure that we are able to leverage the capacity that we have within the community. So one of the approach that we have started using is the community squad. So by the community squad, we mean this is a collaboration between community members and partners who are interested to co-design and co-develop a specific initiative or feature. So with this approach, we believe with more collaboration, we'll be able to develop features within a short time. And then community members can be able to collaborate to build a harmonized solution that can be able to resolve most of the issues that affect the healthcare system. So how do we prioritize the improvements and the features that we're able to work on? So I would like to inform you that any community member can be able to post a feature or an issue on the forum and be able to invite other community members and partners to collaborate in co-developing that feature. And you should be able to feel free to post any feature you're interested in, and we'll be able to coordinate together just to work on that feature. And so once a feature has a good number of partners and community members who are willing to contribute, a community squad would be formed, and then the squad will be involved in co-designing the solution, building the solution, testing the solution, and documenting the solution. And once the CHT improvement is ready, it would be available for the community so that the community can be able to use it in their own specific deployments. So we currently have 2 existing community squads since early November. So, and just to mention an update on how we came about to form this community squad. So we posted the opportunities on the forum, and we were amazed the way more community members and partners were willing to collaborate and contribute. And we have over 7 to around 8 partners who are actively being part of this community, contributing in co-designing and developing these 2 initiatives. So the initiatives that we are working on now are 2. So the first one is the CHT DHS2 interoperability improvement using the OpenFN adapter. So with the OpenFN adapter, we hope that it will be easy for partners to be able to share data between CHT and DHS2 in a more easy and scalable way. And the team is currently working on mapping CHT data to DHS2. And then the other squad is working on a single sign-on feature, and it's currently working on co-developing the feature. So we really appreciate and acknowledge some of the partners that have taken a proactive role in contributing in this community squad. Specifically, we need to call out the OpenFN team, the International Committee of Red Cross, the Swiss TPH team, the Beehive team, and many other teams, including other external independent community members who have been willing to contribute. Also, I can't forget the Living Goods team. So just to share here the main highlights, in case you're interested in any feature and you'd like to work with the community to co-develop that feature, please feel free to share that on the forum. And we'll also provide you an opportunity also to share how that feature you envision it to work so that the community can be able to come in and work on that feature with you. Thank you. Back to you, Niraj.
Thank you very much for that update, Anthony. Does anyone have any questions regarding the squad to Anthony? You can unmute yourself and ask. Okay. You can also put it on chat and we can just follow up any of the questions that anyone has. So for now, let's move to the recap of Open Digital Health Summit. And for this, Tom will be walking us through.
Yeah, hi, my name's Tom. I'm a software developer with Medic based in Kampala, Uganda, which is extra noisy today, so I apologize in advance for any background noise. But today I'm going to be talking about CHT interoperability tools and Open Digital Health Summit, which was a conference last week in Nairobi related to FHIR interoperability. So some background for anyone that's not familiar, the CHT has a tool for interoperability, which lets app developers integrate with other systems using FHIR, Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. And we're looking at ways to simplify and improve this tool, which was the theme of this conference, Open Digital Health Summit. So some key highlights from that summit were things like the CHT's support for code systems and standard terminologies. So most data in the CHT has simple labels that are specific to a specific CHT application, usually in English or some other natural language. For interoperability, almost all data points apart from simple demographics that need to be exchanged need to be aligned with some standard terminology and assigned a code from a code system. So that's something that you can do with CHT's interoperability tools. There is a simple mapping in those tools. But one thing that's highlighted often, both at this conference and in other contexts, is that this is something that could be simpler and easier and more integrated with CHT applications. So we're looking very early days at third-party things like the Open Concept Lab, which is a tool that is specifically for this mapping to codes. Another highlight from the conference is CHT's FHIR conformance or FHIR compliance. So in the FHIR standard, a FHIR API is supposed to have an endpoint that serves some metadata about the API that describes in a both machine readable and human readable way what that API does. And this is actually the minimum that you need to do to be considered a FHIR compliant API. You can have an API that just has this endpoint, this metadata endpoint that says that it doesn't do anything beside that. And that's not very useful in the real world, but that would be considered a FHIR standard API. So you can do this also with the CHT interoperability tools. But it's not easy because you need a separate domain from the CHT API domain. And the metadata information that it would serve would not be completely accurate because the CHT interoperability tools are using a third-party FHIR server, HAPI, and it's going to report much broader capabilities than the CHT application actually has. So we haven't focused on that specifically because functionally it may not matter very much for a particular integration, whether or not it's really fully FHIR compliant or not. but it's still something that we want to support, and we want to be able to say that the APIs are FHIR standard APIs. And the last major highlights is related to mapping from non-FHIR systems to FHIR. Yeah, so one of the fundamental things in FHIR integrations is taking non-FHIR data, in this case CHT documents from the CHT database, and transforming them into FHIR resources. And there's a lot of different ways to do this in the CHT context that are have different levels of adoption and have their own like advantages and disadvantages. So the simplest thing is in the CHT outbound push configuration. You can do some mapping there. That's very simple and relatively easy to use, but the syntax is very difficult for more complex cases. And there's some things that you just cannot do with that. There's also FHIR resources specifically for mapping called structure maps. I don't think anyone is actually using this for mapping CHT data. And one thing that I've heard is that they are difficult to use. They're certainly very verbose and can be a little bit difficult to write by hand and especially to debug. Yeah, so in the last minute here, what the CHT interoperability tools, for the most part, actually do, and what our recommended approaches is to use a custom mediator with OpenHAM. So a mediator is essentially a middleware where you can put some code that does anything that you need really to integrate from one system to another, and can include some mapping things. That implies that mapping is code, not configuration. And that means that changes require a deployment, they require observability, and they have to have their own infrastructure to run on. But that does mean that the mapping is very powerful. You can do literally anything with anything you can code with JavaScript or any other language. You can put in these custom mediators. And it's also a familiar language for most app developers, whereas like something like structure maps is a much more specialized thing. So I think we are out of time, but that's a very brief summary of some of the highlights from Open Digital Health Summit. Back to you, Nirosh.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so we are right on time. So we probably will not have time to cover the developer survey. But I will be sharing over here the link to the CST app developer survey. So if you are a CST app developer, or if you know someone who has experience on the CST app development, please consider filling this survey. So this will help us to enhance and then improve the CST. And your feedbacks are really important and helpful for us. So yeah, any suggestions or feedback regarding the CHT roundup course, please feel free to let us know through email on info@communityhealthtoolkit.org. You can also put your message on the chat over here before you leave. Next CHT roundup call is going to be on the January 9, 2025. And we will be sharing the recording and notes for this roundup call in the CHT forum. So until then, for everyone, happy holidays for the next, while we meet for the next roundup call. So thank you everyone for those who attended, and also to our presenters. We'll just stay a minute and then we'll be ending this call. Thank you everyone.